And what is Mars? What does Mars rule? Aries was the god of war, right? We now have a Department of War. Suddenly we have a Department of War instead of defense. It's very interesting. Defense is much more like a taekwondo, right? The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. Now that's an elevated Mars energy, is how to subdue the enemy without fighting or reacting. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. Knowing thyself. What is Mars Aries energy? The self, right? Know thyself. All warfare is based on deception. Now that's a real good example of Mars with Pluto, right? Scorpio can be deception. Now I'm not saying Scorpios are deceptive. I want to call that. But all warfare is based on deception. Mars are the need to act and know thyself. It's a primal energy. It represents a spark of light, quite frankly, not fully actualized. It has the energy, but it may not be actualized. Any Mars, regardless of quality, is still a cardinal energy. I don't care if it's Pisces or Cancer or anything. It's still got that. That's Mars is what motivates you. That's why I don't think any of these. I know Mars in Cancer is not considered to be as good as Mars in Capricorn. I know that, but if you like food and you like cooking and you have Mars in Cancer, you're going to be motivated to do that, right? If you're not motivated, you're not going to do it. And that's true. I think when you have aspects to your Mars or you have heavy Mars, especially to the natal Mars, I think even if it's a difficult Mars, a lot of people have difficult. What motivates you? Why are things not working out? Might be because you're not brave enough to try the thing that you should be doing too. Because you have to have a certain level of bravery with Mars as well, or courage. Mars represents the potential of being heroic if it can overcome its impulsiveness. That's the younger version of Mars. In many ways, any Mars in the chart, and this is so true, has to go through a baptism by fire so that the sun in the chart will fully self-actualize. Mars, archetype of impulse, the need to act on stimulation, courage, task-oriented. Where Mars is and the house it rules is that you orient your task-oriented. They like their tools. So the need to cut a path forward. And this is the biggest lesson for Mars in our life, is to learn to think before you react. And if you think about the difference between the Greek version, which is Aries, A-R-E-S, and the Roman version, which is Mars. In the Greek version of Aries, forgive me for saying this, Aries, anybody who had a war, let's go fight the war. There wasn't any thinking about, I could be killed, I could kill other people, I just want to fight. But in the Roman version, and the impulse with Venus, because he was always getting caught in bed with Venus. Like, let's go have an afternoon. Well, then the husband fights in. But when you get into the Roman, which is Mars, think of the gladiator. But when he or she, because there have to be, I'm sure they're female gladiators, when they went into that ring, it was about what? Survival. Right. Survival. So you had to know what? You had to know the opponent. You had to know the tools of the opponent. You had to know the counter defensive tools that you would use against that opponent. And you had to be willing to do what? And to cut them. Mars rules knives. It rules surgeons. It rules butchers. I actually had a plastic surgeon. I had a little plastic surgery about 15 years ago. I am not embarrassed about it. Plastic surgeon who was born exactly on the same birthday as my ex-brother-in-law, who was a butcher. And this is a true story. I know, and they were both very good with a knife, but they just expressed it differently. So it is, and this is the Sekhmet. She's the goddess of war in Egypt, who served the fiery eye of Ra. Two-sided. She had two sides to her. She punished humanity for disobedience, as well as she was a revered protector and healer, because that's also Mars, right? Especially since Mars lives in the first house. That's the first house energy. And the fourth house is Cancer. And Mars energy protects its family. It may not like its family, but it protects its family. Outside events for Mars can kick them into action. The will, definitely the will, is associated with Mars. It's, again, what motivates us. It is what drives you to do things. It is task-oriented. one thing at a time and does best when on task. It does have a restless quality. It needs a lot of movement. It needs a lot of energy because it's Mars. The color is red, of course. Tools, knives, guns, swords, scars. People who have a strong Mars in their chart will usually have a scar somewhere on their head or somewhere on the part of the body that the Mars is in that sign. And you see a lot with kids when they play baseball. They get the bat thrown and then they get the scar right across here. Yeah, that's usually a kid who's got a strong Mars or Mars was getting activated. Drumming and percussion are associated with Mars. Drum circles, they had drum circles here, didn't they? Yeah, they're out of fashion now, but
They kind of died down. They were big.
they were big, right? And it's like syncopation, timing, passion, bravery, courage. The Mars has a star marker. Okay, we get that. Okay, so in what house do you find your Mars? And what house does your Mars rule? Where is it placed? What house? Is it angular? If it's angular, it's going to add juice. The house is the area of the life where the person could be motivated with the right environment. The house in which we find Mars influences it, and of course, its aspects. So, why is this doing this? So, here's a story, and it's perfect because it really encompasses the Mars energy. The Greeks associated Aries, which, by the way, the constellation of Aries in the sky is extremely small, and it's not that small. It's like a little ram. The Greeks associated Aries with Phrixus, who was the hero Mars, hero's son, Vathimas. But he fled on the back of a ram with his sister Helle to Colchis to escape the wrath of the stepmother. Now that's a theme, that's a Mars theme, is being severed from the clan because it's too painful. Helle, his sister, becomes giddy, falling off the ram into the sea because she didn't listen to the warning that her brother told her to pay attention. Another unevolved Mars energy is they don't listen. That's pretty common. They just hear themselves talk. So anyway, she falls into the sea. It becomes a hellspout, which today separates Greece and Turkey. Now, Manilius, well, these are old, but it's cool to hear this. First golden Aries shines, who whilst he swam, lost part of his freight. That's his freight, not fright, and gave the sea a name. The loss of Helle may be symbolic of the lack or suppression of the feminine. I know this is not going to be very popular. Of the suppression of the feminine element in the Aryan psyche, old thinking, yes, no. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a manosphere that's out there now, right? That we're hearing a lot about. That's all that Aries is in the sky right now. Ovid wrote, the ram that bore on safely the burden of Helle. On reaching his journey's end, Phrixus, the brother, sacrificed the ram, and this is where the golden fleece comes from, and hung his fleece in the grove of Aries, which is a Greek version of Aries, where it was turned to gold and became the object of the Argonauts' quest. And that's a book I should have had at the end. I have a little tiny bibliography, but this is kind of a cool, it's a very old book. Star Names, Their Lore and Meaning by Richard Hinckley Allen. Okay, and Ptolemy, and I think he was pretty great, Ptolemy. He's confusing, but he was great. The stars in the head of Aries possess an influence similar in its effect to that of Mars and Saturn. Those in the mouth act similarly to Mercury and to some degree of Saturn, again, Saturn. Those in the hind foot to Mars, and those in the tails, Venus. And this is, you all know this, just because we have this planets and the signs, the constellations aren't exactly lined up right now. You all know that, right? Okay. Just make sure of that. So, all right. Now, this is a book. If you ever get a chance, you should have that here. I love this book. This guy, I actually have a cover of this one. E.C. Krupp, Dr. E.C. Krupp, who was the, I think, astronomer down at the observatory in Southern California, wrote several books, one of which is Beyond the Blue Horizon by Dr. E.C. Krupp. And I remember when Wendy Ashley, who's gone now, but she's a friend of mine, she came out to Berkeley 25, 30 years ago, and she said, we have to go to Berkeley and listen to him. And he did it changed the way I saw things. He did a whole day on the myths and the constellations, and he's an astronomer. And the book is just an amazing book. And this piece about the Assyrian ram was absolutely fascinating to me. He said, which I didn't know this, he said that in the hired laborer was called the Lu Hunga. Hired laborers were hired seasonally important need to manually germinate the date palms. They cannot do it on their own, which is Mars, right? With the pollen from the one male tree in the center of the grove. Isn't that interesting? One male tree in the center of a whole date palm grove. That says something, right? In the Moon Alpine, the hired laborer was called Dumuzi, which is another story. He is also known as the one great source of the date clusters, embodying the spirit of the storehouse. His bride Inanna, who's the goddess of the underworld, sometimes known as the lady of the date clusters, was the storehouse for the dates, which Dumuzi kept well supplied. Therefore, when the stars of this constellation rose, it signaled it was the time for pollinating the palms, which generally open in March and April. And what happens at the end of March in the Northern Hemisphere? Well, anytime. It's Aries, right?
It's Aries.
And right now we got a lot of it now. And this actually is, you just said that one. So one of the themes of Mars, especially with stress, is the theme of being separated from the plan or severed from the plan. And I loved her. I really loved her. Gloria Steinem. Does anybody know who she was or is? She is. She's so good. That's good, because when I taught at Kepler, I brought her up. This is like 25, 30 years ago. And some of the students say, "Oh, is she?" Wow. Right. That's probably so I love her. I just think she was incredibly great at what she did. But she said the art of life is not controlling what happens to us, but using what happens to us. So I wanted to show you her chart. Can you see it?
I don't know if it's still there, but there was a great documentary about her on Netflix.
Oh, good. Good. Well,
Yeah,
that's
that
good.
was recently. Yeah.
Oh, good. That's good to know, because I didn't see that. So she's born for the sake of the people here. She's born March 25th, 1934, 10 p.m. in Toledo. She's from Ohio. Toledo, Ohio. And let's just quickly look.
Sun Mars conjunction there.
Doesn't that jump right out at you?
Yeah.
And what is her ascendant?
Scorpio.
And what's the,
Or do you want to tell the young ones who she is?
oh, the young ones don't know who she is.
I don't know. I don't know who she is.
I do. Okay, I will definitely tell you who she is. Gloria Steinem, gorgeous, knockout, beautiful. She was a journalist. She was interested in journalism, and but it was the 60s and 70s when women couldn't get jobs except as secretaries. Okay, so I don't know I can't remember how she did this, but she decided to pose as a Playboy bunny. She was gorgeous, right? Not grown, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Playboy bunnies are, yeah. And she in Chicago, because I was in Chicago, and she went to the Hefner Mansion, got herself hired as a Playboy bunny, and she did an expose on the Playboy bunnies and what happened. And that went viral, and people started hiring her to write stories. Then what she did is she started Ms. Magazine. She's the one that started MS that you see on all the forms instead of Mrs. or Miss, because she felt that that's it, right? Look at her eyes, just isn't that wonderful?
Well, the Ms. thing, I'm always,
That's sign up.
I'm really a big feminist, so I will be looking at
Yeah, well, that's because she's the mother of feminism. Not the only one, but she had the courage to do it, and she was smart. What?
She had the played board.
She was also very smart, and she still is. Mars Sun conjunction, she didn't react to people when they said always, in those days they said you got a cute ass. I mean, things like that. She never reacted. She just always had the right answer. Now that's a very well-developed Mars, right? So what happened with her life story was, I think it was her sister. Did you see that Netflix? Her father, she was very close to her father. He was a salesman, and I think she used to go with him a lot, but he left. And she was pretty young. And so she ended up being the one that took care of her mother and her sister. And I think her sister was sick or ill, which is interesting, because where do you see her Saturn Venus? Right by the fourth house cusp, right? And she swore she would never be married. And she never did marry. And then finally in her mid-60s, somewhere in her mid-60s, she met Christian Bale. You know who Christian Bale is, the actor?
Familiar.
Okay. Yeah. She met his father. Well, she knew him for a while, and they got married. They were only married a few years, and the man died of cancer.
Oh, wow.
And again, she was by herself. But she still fights for women's equal rights, equal pay, everything. And that's why I use her. I mean, I get the chills every time I talk about her, because That was a hard time there in
Yeah.
the 70s for women, you know.
The documentary centered mostly on the magazine.
Oh, Ms.
And-
Magazine,
Yeah, and the Equal Rights Amendment.
the Equal Rights Amendment. Yeah, she fought for that.
Yeah.
And she was so smart.
So small.
Still is. I mean, she's still kicking. She just recently did some things. She's about 85 now. She's an incredible person. And I think she really pissed off a lot of men, that's for sure. But she has Neptune in the 10th. So she's very Neptunian, very seductive, intuitive, really knew how to work a room without being a sycophant. Yes. And it's a Mars sun in the 5th house. What's the 5th house? Natural home. Leo, right? So was she brave? That's brave, right?
Plus,
The
she was
moon in
quite a
Leo.
performer.
She was.
She's got a Leo moon.
Yeah, Leo.
She has a Leo moon right at the
Yeah.
top, right? And here's Chiron in the 7th. She had a husband, but he didn't last. Yeah, no, an incredible. I would love to see that docu. I think it's funny we're talking about her because I'm just noticing Uranus is 26 Aries where Chiron is right now. Okay. So that's Gloria Steinem. Whoops. The separation, self-actualization. The sun is about self-actualization. Where the sun is in the horoscope is where you shine, where you always go to get your B12 shot, right? But before you become the hero, you have to go on a walkabout or the hero's journey, if you will, which of course Luke Skywalker did, you know, Star Wars, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's a story about a walkabout. Luke Skywalker goes on the walkabout to become self-actualized. And here's firemen, you see a lot of factors. Then at Mars, right? Okay. To develop one's Mars, the walkabout. Oh, this is in the E.C. Krupp book about the date. If you ever want to get that book. Prophet asks, what was the name of the book again? Oh, here it is. It's Beyond the Blue Horizon by, here it is, Dr. E.C. Krupp. I love this book. He also wrote another one, which I have, which is a sequel, I think. So here's the Inanna and Dumuzi story, one of the oldest love stories, you know, Mars and Venus, right? Inanna, they came before they became Mars and Venus. She was the queen of heaven. He's the shepherd king. They're central figures in the Sumerian mythology, forming what is considered to be the world's oldest love story and a sacred ritual about 2000 BCE. There are myth cycles between, and this is very interesting, between passionate courtship, that's Mars, right?
Mhm.
And a little Neptune thrown in too. Marriage, which is more moon, right? Libra. Yeah, and Libra, Venus. And a tragic cycle of seasons where Dumuzi takes Inanna's place in the underworld for a year, which is also a story of the seasons. This is another one. I love these stories, the Daedalus story and the Phaethon story. Daedalus was the master architect of the labyrinth in Crete, and his son was Icarus. And Daedalus is the master architect. He designs this. He knows the secret of the labyrinth where they keep the Minotaur. But after it's designed, the king puts them in this prison because he doesn't want the secret of the labyrinth to be revealed. So Daedalus is the master craftsman, and Icarus is his son who's learning the craft. So Daedalus figures out a way to get out of this tower, and they very patiently, very Mars Saturn-y, he gets candles, wax, feathers from the birds that are flying, and he builds wings for his son and he to escape through the top. But he warns his son, never fly close to the sun, S-U-N. But does the son listen?
No.
No. And he falls into the sea, but Daedalus escapes. So that's the difference between a higher, more highly evolved Mars and a less evolved Mars. It has a few things to learn. Another one of those stories is Phaethon, the dark star, often known as the dark star. He's the son of Helios, which means sun in Greek. That's the word for sun in Greek. And of course, the story is that every day, you know, Helios takes the chariot, and brings the sun, and then every night he banks it until the next morning. So the son, like the teenager without the driver's license, decides he can do it, and he takes it out without permission, takes the chariot out, loses control of the horses, falls into the sea, and dies. Or some versions show his father is so angry at him, he just sends a thunderbolt to just kill him because he's not worth it, right? Sort of like a Christy Nolan thing with the puppies, right?
Okay.
I bet she has a Mars. I'd love to see her chart. And then he falls into the sea. So, you know, that's the struggle of Mars.